Welcome to Decades of Horror, the classic era.
He who robs the grave of Egypt dies. Oh, yeah!
This is episode 91, recorded January 10th, 2021.
Gruesome Magazine.
I'm your host, Jeff Mohr. On this podcast, we cover the good, the bad, and maybe even the ugly horror films released since the beginning of time through 1969. In each episode, we'll discuss monsters, spirits, psychos, and villains that have haunted movie-going audiences since the dawn of film history. With me this week are my incredible co-host, Whitney Collazo, an accomplished artist and makeup artist. How are you, Whitney?
Frozen.
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. And welcome to the first video podcast of Classic Era. Chad Hunt is also with us. Co-host of Decades of Horror, the 1970s and 1980s. But he's also a film producer and director with Wreak Havoc Productions and a comic book artist and writer. Wake up, buddy.
I'm a little wrapped up right now to get back with you.
Yeah. Also with us for the first time in months, and we are so happy to have him back, is Joseph Perry. And you know what? I don't know. Is this all still the same?
It's still the same. I'll make one small comment after you're done.
Okay. Yeah, he's a contributing writer to Gruesome magazine and to The Scariest Things, When It Was Cool, Horror Fuel, and Ghastly Grinning websites, Phantom of the Movies Videoscope magazine, the Drive-In Asylum zine, and Diabolique magazine, and co-host of the Uphill Both Ways podcast. It is sure good to be looking at you, Joseph.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks, Jeff. It's really great to be back with you three. I missed you guys so much, missed our time talking about movies together. And I'm really happy to be back for the first video broadcast. The thing I wanted to mention about what you just kindly rolled off for me is that, as you three know, and maybe some of the viewers and listeners, Joe Kane, the publisher and editor of Phantom of the Movies Videoscope magazine, passed away a little over a month and a half ago, I believe it was. And so that magazine is no longer being published, but you can still get back issues. The most recent issue is still on the newsstands or available through the website. So if you love movies like we love movies, please check out Videoscope. And because it's our first video broadcast, I hope you all appreciate the green screen I've done of beige wallpaper and an air conditioner.
Expertly done, my friend. Expertly done.
Thank you.
Yes.
Reminds me of a found footage film I saw.
Yeah, well, in the future, after some construction goes on around here and things are finished, I will have wonderful posters like this Japanese Frankenstein Conquers the World poster behind me.
Ooh.
So far back, you probably
Love
can't
it.
see it. How to Kill Monsters. And things like Gamera and Ultraman Kaiju. All right, but today
Chad's face. He's like,
I just wanted to do
I'm jelly.
the air conditioner and beige, and there is an Ultraman Japanese towel hanging over there. But anyway, I spared no expense on the green screen tonight.
Well, your green screen is almost as good as my beige wall with Spider-Man posters behind it. So
Almost as
I have to
I've
catch
got
up. I
cabinet.
have to catch up.
in a
Yeah.
fridge.
I wish I would have thought about a cabinet and fridge, but
The way things were going this morning, it was almost a toilet behind
Yeah.
us. So
Mm.
stay classy, my friend.
All I have is a hallway with a
Yeah.
light at the back of it. You know, it's,
right.
and as I keep giving her a hard time, as Crystal Cleveland calls it, my old-fashioned digital clock. Yeah.
Such an old-fashioned clock, Jeff. You need to get with the times. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So today's topic, chosen by the one and only Chad Hunt, is 1959's The Mummy from Hammer, written and directed by the incredible duo Terence Fisher and Jimmy Sangster. And it stars another dynamic duo, Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, and Yvonne Furneaux.
Who?
She's a lovely woman and has a very interesting career.
Who is this Christopher Lee fellow?
Just because
that guy. So, in 1895, British archaeologists find and open the tomb of Egyptian Princess Ananka with nefarious consequences. I had to look that word up. Nefarious, yeah. All of
We're
that.
gonna have about a 3-hour broadcast tonight.
Yep.
I think,
Yes, we
before
are.
we even get to the movie.
All right, so this is from, quickly move through some details. This is from Hammer Films, distributed in the U.S. by Universal International. The release date, and this seems weird to me, the actual premiere looks to be August 1st, 1959 in Japan. I'm not sure how that worked out. But it was released in UK 25th September 1959 and in the US December 16th of the same year. And it's pretty much known as The Mummy, or a variation of this one. In German, it's Die Rache der Pharaonen.
The Rockefeller what?
Yeah, which means The Revenge of the Pharaohs. It was filmed at Bray Studios, Hammer's home, with some shots at Shepperton Studios. Filming dates were February 23rd, 1959 to April 16th. Estimated budget was £125,000, which I believe comes out to about $351,000 at the time, or $3.9 million in today's dollars. Domestic box office back then, $2.2 million. That comes from Ultimate Movie Rankings. So $351,000 to $2.2 million, about a six-fold return, if that's correct. And now, our favorite, maybe not our viewers' favorite, but our favorite segment, taglines, according to Chad Hunt.
Okay.
So enthused.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, okay. Here we go, everybody. Everybody ready for the taglines? Here we go. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Torn from the tomb to terrify the world.
Okay.
It
And
works.
those were taglines by Chad Hunt.
Let's go.
Nerve-shattering shock from the original U.S. print ad. All caps, by the way. All caps for those at home.
How many exclamation marks?
I can tell by your voice, yeah.
1. All new and terrifying Technicolor. Original U.S. print ad, all caps. Again. It walks through steel like a ghost.
Did you see that?
I don't think he walks through steel the same way a ghost walks through steel.
In fact, I don't remember seeing any steel.
Or a ghost.
No.
He
But
just
anyway,
busted a door wide open.
Maybe it was a steel door.
it was a steel door. He didn't walk through it. He sort of barged in unannounced,
Uninvited.
Yeah, uninvited.
Well, he
How
definitely
rude.
does.
How rude. It also snaps men's spines like matchsticks.
Like a ghost.
Well, that happens.
It's like a ghost and Sasquatch.
That happens.
Oh, I almost said fear will freeze you in the face, but it's fear will freeze you when you face. ...
The Mummy.
Its evil look brings madness.
Because, wait,
Its evil spell enslaves. No, Jeff, I keep going.
That's
The
what
evil
we're
touch skills.
That was
Never talk over me, Jeff. Never try to.
well. That's
Never.
a
Okay, go ahead.
Peter Lorre tagline. They tend
I
to
thought
do
it was Ren Hoek. Anyway, go
Yeah, me too.
ahead.
they tend to do these in threes thing. It's evil does this. It's evil spell does that. It's evil touch. Okay.
Yeah.
One before fear
Horror rule of 3.
freeze you when you face. It has to freeze you because the mummy doesn't move that fast. So you have to, when you see it, you have to freeze until it gets to you and grabs you by the throat.
Yeah. It's a predatory skill that mummies have accumulated over the years. Yeah. Also, Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee star as an ancient evil is unleashed on the world. Last but not least,
Love
it's
it.
true. It's true.
Yeah.
It's all true.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get to first impressions. And since this is yours, Chad, when was the first time you saw this, your first impression? And I assume you still like it now.
Yes, I do. I can't. I saw it on TV. It was either one of the Turner classic movie channels or TBS or one of those that I saw it on. And up to that point, I had never seen a mummy movie outside of Boris Karloff's original movie. So when I saw this one, and it had a lot more mummy in it, a lot more mayhem and shotgun blasts, to the torso, stuff like that, I was like, whoa, this is cool. The mummy's actually doing something in this movie. I mean, he doesn't turn into an old man, and as beloved as I love Karloff's Mummy, this is my second favorite mummy movie ever. I loved Christopher Lee in it. I loved the way the mummy looked. And I didn't figure out till later that the plot of this is based on a couple of other Universal cheaper, the cheap mummy movies that came a little bit after Karloff's version. But I always love the movies where the mummy is actually doing something, and he was doing something. So I love this movie, and I still love it. It still holds up to me as one of the better mummy movies, production wise, and especially when you go back and you see before Christopher Lee turned into the mummy and how all that happened and everything like that. It was really, really cool stuff. And plus, like the tagline said, Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. What can you say? What can you say? I love it. I still love it. It's still good. I still love watching it.
Excellent. So let's go with Whitney Collazo right now. When was the first time you saw this?
Yeah, so I feel like I've seen clips of this before, but never the full thing until recently. If gifted me this DVD, and what an awesome gift, right? So no, pretty much you can't really go wrong with watching most of anything with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, and it's so different from Universal's with Boris Karloff. So I just think it's fun.
Yeah, it is. It is. So now to our guest host. No, I'm sorry, Joseph Barry. So how does this fit into your pantheon of horror films, and when did you first see it?
The Universal mummy movies are a bit slow for me, old sport. Jeff and I were talking a little bit about this before we got on the air. And so basically I'm agreeing with Chad that I appreciate and like a lot the first Boris Karloff mummy film, but the other Universal mummy films, they are a bit slow for me. And the mummy is slow as well. And here we have a real threatening monster mummy, And I first saw this one, I'm sure, on television as a youngster. And from what I remember, I appreciated Christopher Lee's mummy a lot more than the slower moving Universal mummies and the different actors who played them. But here we had a real threat. And we talked about Mummy moving slowly, but he is a bit faster here and is a real menacing Hulk. And so I don't need action in all of my horror movies, but when it comes to older school monsters, I do appreciate that. So I've really liked this Mummy film a lot since I saw it as a kid. And I've watched it again over the years, and so many great images from it that I'll save for when we start talking about that later. So yeah, there we have it.
Yeah, and I was going to kind of correct myself that this Christopher Lee definitely moves faster than the mummies in the Universal horror movies, which are sort of shuffling. You know, we finally get to the, I think it's Lon Chaney Jr. when he does the one, he sort of creates the sidestep drag with the cocked arm. Is where when that first shows up. But this is a great movie, and I think it's cool that Christopher Lee puts his own stamp on the Mummy, even though, you know, he's pretty much unrecognizable when he's in the mummy makeup. So yeah, I like this. It one of the things that kind of puts me off when I was watching it again was thinking about the exposition. There's like about a 20-minute period where about 15 minutes of it is somebody talking, narrating over flashbacks. But it's integral to the story, right? I mean, he has to explain what happened there. Then first he's telling them the legend or the mythology of what happened with Ananka, and then somebody is retelling the story of his father being surprised and scared into an insane asylum, basically, which is also in the first one, the Universal one. So yeah, I enjoy this a lot. I especially enjoy, the more that I watch Hammer films, I really enjoy the settings, the sets, how
beautiful, yeah,
elaborate they are and huge, and just really, really well done. So yeah.
Like the sequence you were just talking about, telling the backstory of the mummy and his lover, the forbidden love between them. I felt also, it kind of feels like Christopher Lee needed to be guaranteed some on-screen time without the mummy makeup. So as you said, it feels like a lot of exposition, and I think maybe a reason for that was, the filmmakers wanted to get him on screen, showing some dramatic talent as well as under the wraps.
Right. And I certainly don't want to. I'm not second guessing Terence Fisher and Jimmy Sangster, but I wonder what it would have looked like if they actually, did kind of the narration fade into an actual scene with actors and those sounds and things. But and who knows, maybe it was added later. I didn't see any information that indicated that, but yeah, I enjoy this. It's and I actually have some kind of thoughts about that. But first, let's kind of get into the cast and crew. So Fisher and Sangster. I know we've done other films. The first Hammer Frankenstein movie with the two of them. So any comments on the direction and the script? just pipe up, folks. Let's have a conversation.
It was great. It was great direction. It was, like I said, it's got that great Hammer feel to it. You know, that gothic. Even though it's a mummy movie, it still had that Hammer feel to it, and it was. I really enjoyed it, and the pacing was good. It's not only like an hour and a half movie, but there's a lot crammed in that hour and a half, and but it all just flows together very well, and the action it keeps going. So I think he did a great job. This is on par with a lot of, almost everything else he's done.
Right.
I'm a big fan of Curse of Frankenstein, and I feel this is even a better movie than that. As far as the direction goes, he did a great job, I thought.
Yeah.
I agree. It's classic Hammer fare, and they've Fisher has the pacing down. It does get bogged down a bit as with the parts that you mentioned, Jeff, the exposition, but other than that, the suspense builds, and we care about the characters, the protagonists, and we love the mummy, even though he's the evil one, but he is being used by somebody else for nefarious deeds. But yeah, it's great stuff, and we get some wonderful tension in there too. So Fisher's fantastic. I don't have much more to add than what Chad had said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Joseph mentioned earlier about talking. He was talking about the backstory and the love that was going on between the two. But I liked knowing that they could put emphasis on that backstory and showing what was going on with the others that were involved with Ananka. I can't. Is that how you say her name? So everyone that had followed her, and it was just so eerie but beautiful to see the I hate to say it in this way, but the way it was presented, seeing the slaves that were following through, and then the women when Karis would approach them, and I guess it would be that sacrificial rite or whatever that was going on, and talking about what they were about to endure, and then crossing over into the afterlife, and that's pretty intense mythological stuff with the Egyptian history of things being right there in your face, and then you see those scythes like being pulled up away from the slave women right there, even though they look so beautiful with their makeup and everything. I just thought, oh wow, they look really pretty, and like, oh, what's gonna happen now.
Yeah. Which, as you talk about that, it makes me wonder. I read something that there's the scene where Christopher Lee's character is his tongue is cut out, right? Because he violates the I don't know, some sacrilegious thing when he tries to raise the princess, and we don't see that. So I guess what I'm getting at is how Curse of Frankenstein was sort of legendary for putting some blood into Frankenstein. Am I correct with that? That's where we start to see that Hammer blood, and we don't really get any blood in this one.
No, I think the only thing that we get out of, again, putting emphasis on that scene was seeing him hold that scroll when it's talked about that he's about to do, or what he had done. All you see is him holding up that scroll because he's going to read it.
Yeah. Did you guys notice that at all? I mean, there were things that were like the death of the her servants who were all, that was just sort of an implied thing too.
Yeah.
Chad or Joseph? I mean, is that something that stuck out, or you just?
Well, that's just classic, leave it to the viewer's imagination
Mhm.
horror, I think. So I think this was still a period of transition for horror films and Hammer also, where once, they didn't just immediately.
There he
And
goes
that may
again.
be the most profound thing I've ever said.
Oh no.
Of
And we
course.
missed it.
Oh, technical difficulties
Uh,
from. So Chad, help me out here.
I don't know if I can help
Well,
you out right now.
Wait.
I'm watching Joseph imitate King Kong right now.
He's doing pantomime.
Stop motion, Joseph.
So,
My Wi-Fi connection. I think is it just my Wi-Fi?
yeah. If you're
Alright.
seeing all three of us circle, then it's you.
Okay.
Uh,
I thought it was the movie Spiral or something.
yeah. So
All right, let me try that one again. Okay.
good. Cool.
All right. If I can remember what I said that was so profound.
The most profound thing you've ever said in
Yeah,
your life.
maybe I should just leave it at that.
Never mind.
Forget it.
Oh,
Oh no, it's transitional period. There we go. They didn't immediately go overboard once they, dabbled with experimenting with blood a bit. And I think this was kind of a transitional movie between this and what would come later. So they were still sticking with, showing things or having deaths and things occur off screen rather than going full tilt into, well, let's, get as graphic as we can. I think this movie might have fallen into that period for him.
Mhm.
But we do get blood in the previous Frankenstein and Dracula films, right? From Hammer.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
oh yeah.
Uh,
It's that
and in
bright
fact-
red.
Yeah. Well, and in fact, they did say that there was something more graphic to the tongue removal scene, but the British censors.
Yeah, it was the 50s still. I mean, late 50s, but I a little bit of blood. And we got a lot of mummy dust for sure.
Plus the beheading of the servants.
Yeah.
That would
yeah.
have taken a lot of special effects.
Mhm.
Yeah, that I wouldn't
Oh,
really
yeah.
expect
Perfect
to see.
timing,
But,
yes.
and his method of the mummy's method of killing is one-handed strangulation, so there's not going to be much blood.
Right.
Yeah, I like.
Strangulation.
I was just reading that Terence Fisher was, for the most part, would stick with the script. Was like, here's the script we got. Here's what we're shooting, unless something made sense while you were doing it. He didn't let people fly against it too often.
Mm-hmm.
Although we do have the story about Peter Cushing, that the poster came out before they actually shot the movie, and it has that beam of light coming through the mummy's body. And apparently Cushing thought that was weird. So while they were filming, he's like, how about I run him through with this harpoon? And then we'll have an explanation for the beam of light. And they went, oh yeah, okay. So, which is, I think, one of the cooler scenes of the film. So yeah.
That reminds me, I'm sure we're going to address this later, but you had mentioned, I think, Chad, you had mentioned the bullets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bullet effects we had, which were really cool. But then at the end, okay, so he usually walks away from being shot, right? But
Right.
at the end, spoilers, everybody, he dies by being shot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, was it the number of bullets? Because he was shot at by a lot more people than just one at the time. But that still seems kind of anticlimactic.
Well, but he doesn't actually die, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he staggers into the bottomless
He's
pit.
weakened.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I thought they were going to like,
and he just
first
sinks into the bog. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is sort of that. Go ahead, Whitney.
I'm trying to remember the name of the one who controlled him, the one that that character's name, the one who was in control of him.
Oh, Mammoth Bay.
Yeah. So I just, when I saw that he was at the end and he was shot, and I thought, okay, yeah, that almost doesn't make sense, but also he wasn't in as much control as he used to be. I don't know. I felt like maybe it had something to do with that otherworldly power that was between him and between the two. Actually, I felt like that was basically a weak link at the point for that to really happen.
Because when I kind of agree with Whitney. It seemed like when he put down Isabel after she screamed at him to let her go and everything, that he reluctantly kind of put her down. But I think it kind of severed that bond that might have been there. And so his purpose for being there kind of went too. So he just sort of gave up and sank. I don't think the bullets maybe did anything to him, because they'd established that earlier. So I always thought that, well, because she did not want to go in with him down into the bog, that he sort of just gave up. That's what I always got from it.
Yeah, so help me out here. I was taking it that as long as he thought Isabel was sort of like the reincarnation of Ananka, that he was bound to obey her. Did I have that wrong? Or because then there's that one point where, he's strangling the crap out of Peter Cushing's character, Banning, and then he's going, "You're here," So she has to let her hair down to look more like Ananka, and then all of a sudden he obeys her. Did I get that wrong, or was he just sort of in trance?
Ananka never had an updo, I guess.
Yeah,
all their time together.
Yeah. No. Well,
Yeah, I got that too. I mean,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, styles were different 4,000 years ago, Joseph. Get with it.
Get with
it. Yeah, so we're talking about these guys. Let's take a look at the transformations here. Christopher Lee, who starts out, he's Chorus, and he's kind of, I don't know, is he her servant? Or but he starts out with this they've got the really cool eye makeup going back 4,000 years ago. And then right before he's imprisoned, he's wrapped up in this bandages, which and then finally when he's resurrected, we have sort of the mud
bath.
Yeah. Yes.
Wait a minute. He never should have been a mummy. He didn't go through the mummification process. I just realized this because they entombed him alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That may be the most profound thought I've had in a while. But right. So how could he be a mummy if he wasn't? Anyway, it's a fun Hammer movie. I don't want to start nitpicking like that, but it just occurred to me.
But so I like his he definitely does move faster than the Universal mummies, and he does this sort of I don't know what you want to call it, stiff-legged run forward almost. He's not quite running, but he's not just
sort of a lunge.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that made him a lot scarier. You know, usually that's the big joke. Mummies are the Aquaman of the horror community. You know, just because they're so slow moving, you can get away from them. And but he was scary. I mean, you couldn't really get away from him. I mean, he moved sort of too fast to get away from him. I mean, maybe he used that to his advantage. They think I'm going to move slow because I'm a mummy, but in actuality, I'm going to lunge forward and just
he does move pretty fast. And I think part of what they threw in there was the way he burst through. I don't think
like a ghost.
Yes, but he never just walks through an open doorway.
Right.
He crashes through doors. He crashes through windows. He doesn't just. I mean, he literally just like bursts through them. Right.
Hey, if I was a mummy and I had mummy powers, that's how I'd enter every building, every meeting I ever had to go to. Boom! All right, it's 9:00. What's on the agenda?
It would have been fun to have him walk through a door with the, body.
Yeah, the perfect outline of them. Like a Tom and Jerry cartoon.
Exactly.
But I thought that
that one turned out.
That added a great effect, I think. I mean, that would make you freeze for a second or so, right? I mean,
and plus other things.
Yeah. Plus other things. Well, so
I'm trying not to work blue here, Jim. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking blue. So you're hinting blue, and I'm finishing.
So yeah, he charges in, grabs him by the neck, and starts to throttle him with his one hand. So what about? Well, let's take a look at our other lead, Christopher Lee, who is his usual handsome and debonair self. I think does really great in the fight scenes. I think he's thrashing about, and he actually, out of all the people I've seen strangled, he looks more like he's actually being strangled than most people. He's really got that going on. And then we also have Yvonne Furneaux, who is, she does have some pretty great screams in this, but I love the look of her in the makeup in her coffin or tomb or whatever that thing is.
She lived to be 92 years old.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So did you guys know much about her? Have you ever?
Reading up about her, I saw that she was involved with the movie Repulsion, the Catherine Deneuve movie.
Oh, right.
That's the only other thing I recognized that she was in.
Well, she had what was, I don't remember the exact words they used to describe it, but kind of a weird career in that she follows this up with Fellini's La Dolce Vita. And then goes on to do Repulsion, but is also in a really kind of weird movie, The Death Ray of Dr. Mabuse.
Yeah, how about Frankenstein's Great Aunt Tilly?
Yeah, I kind of want to see that. I don't.
Wait, Jeff, do you know who directed Death Ray of Dr. Mabuse?
Hugo Fregonese and Victor DeSantis.
Okay, because I was just thinking she worked for two of the greatest directors of that era, Fellini and Polanski, but
Yeah.
then sounds like after that,
Well, and then she also did The Slave Queen of Babylon.
no joke waiting to happen there, but
There's just weird. It's an interesting career. It really is an interesting career. And she seems like one of those people that, we very often run into these on these movies. I don't know. It's kind of a shame, but a lot of the oops.
don't
What?
tip over there, Chad.
Do what?
Something fell over.
Well, that was my
Behind
chair.
you.
Oh, okay.
That was
Yeah.
my chair.
I forget what I talked about. Oh, Yvonne Furneaux. That we run into these, the actresses in these movies that they seem like they should have had, really good careers. They're good actors. They have a good presence. And then they do about, maybe 20 to 30, 40 films, and then they just stop. Sometimes it's because they get married, and that's a sign of the time. Sometimes it's because they move on to other things. But I think sometimes it's because the roles aren't there. They're filling the studio slot, especially in the 40s and 50s, of the young, attractive woman that. So I don't know. I don't know the exact reason by it. It's just it's just an observation. But I thought she did great.
Yeah.
And she has a great look. She's a beautiful, beautiful woman. And she had sort of a commanding presence in the film too. She was really, really just captivating to look at and watch her act and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So,
I think she has a real presence.
mhm.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, her performance is great. But talking about her personal life, when you're saying some people just either the roles aren't there or they get married, and I saw where something about her acting presence has declined after marrying a cinematographer, Jacques
Oh, okay.
Nateau. I can't pronounce that right.
Mm-hmm. So she did get married.
So,
and
yeah. That's I can't pronounce the last name, but yeah, she married a senator. Yeah.
Okay. Of course, we have the usual stable of great character actors. So George Pastel plays I don't know, Mehmet Bey.
Mehmet Bey, yeah.
Yeah. So he does a pretty decent job, and then we have the almost ever-present Michael Ripper in Hammer films, who is hilarious as the poacher that is one of the first to report seeing the mummy. And then also shown here are Raymond Huntley and Felix Aylmer, not to be confused with
Brain damage.
Yeah, brain damage. Aylmer, yeah, he plays Peter Cushing's father, and he's the one that's scared into insanity by the first viewing of Caris. And Raymond Huntley, I don't know, is he a friend or an uncle or something?
Uncle.
He's along as the sort of voice of reason.
Guilt tripper.
Yes. Yeah. But I particularly liked Felix Aylmer. I thought I enjoyed his. He played scared insane really well.
He really did. I was just going to say Michael Ripper was, as you said, very great as the token Hammer Studios drunk. They always have at least two drunk characters usually, in each of the films, whether it's gothic or not. So yeah, and yeah, he was great as the poacher.
We actually had 3 in this one. We had the 2 guys that were delivering the Carus out
Right.
to Mr. Bay. I thought Ripper did a great job, and he was funny as well, especially when he was telling people about it. He's 10 feet tall. Oh, 10 feet
How
tall.
tall?
Yeah. Well, at least 7.5.
Yeah, that was great.
But he's always good. He throws a bit of him, adds little bits of business, right, to his character.
Mm-hmm.
And I left some of the people out of here. I mean, Eddie Byrne as Inspector Mulrooney has a pretty decent part as the incredulous policeman that's investigating these murders, who finally comes to believe, yeah, this is what's happening. That's probably the main other one.
I didn't read up on him, but his accent was interesting because it was somewhere between American and British.
Yeah, I think he wasn't. He was Irish, I think.
Okay.
I think Eddie Byrne was Irish, so some of that may have come through in his English accent, maybe.
Yeah, so he was born in Dublin. He's also in Island of Terror. According to this, he was in Star Wars, the first film, as General Willard. Don't know who that is, but I will have to keep an eye out for him. Pretty decent career. But yeah, he does a good job on that. Let's talk about some of the details in this. I mean, apparently, this was not an easy film for Christopher Lee. I mean, it said he in the swamp that was in the tank, apparently had pipes and things in it. He injured his knees and shins while walking through these swamps on the pipe fittings and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, the door that he crashed through was accidentally bolted before the scene was shot.
Oh gosh!
And he dislocated his shoulder when he broke down the door, which is supposed to be the shot in the movie. Now, I had a hard time telling exactly which one it was because he totally bashes through a couple of doors. And then apparently, and they looked pretty powerful, when Peter Cushing shot him with the shotgun in the chest, and you see these just kind of an explosion of bandages and dust and stuff, that those left burn marks for a few weeks.
Wow,
So
really?
he wasn't really faking when he staggered backwards, I don't think.
I think it was the steel door that dislocated his shoulder.
Yes, that's what you get when you think you're a ghost and you can't really go through steel like you thought you could.
Right.
Oh, Lordy. Okay.
This was a cool. I love that Hammer was doing all these remakes of the Universal horror movies, and this one. And it was. I think that's one of the reasons that I think Universal allowed them to use the name Carus. Because that's the same name they used in the Universal sequels and stuff. For the Mummy, and I just always thought that was a cool thing. We look at them now, we think the Hammer classics are just as old as the 1930s Universal horror movies, but these were I love the fact that they went back and tried to update all the old Universal stuff, and this is a great example of it. It's a great example of them doing that.
Well, and this is, think about that. This was about 26 years after the original, which would be now if somebody remade something in 1994.
Right.
When we're looking back, it seems like a long time, but when we're talking recent, it doesn't seem to.
Exactly. Yeah, you talk to kids now, they go, 94, I wasn't even born then. And you're just like, oh.
This was the first film where they had an official agreement with Universal. I think maybe the first two films were enough of a success that they wanted to try to find some way to cash in on it. So this has one of the things that makes this is obviously a Hammer film, right? When you watch this.
Yes, absolutely.
They had this stable of people that worked on a lot of Hammer films. And so I don't know that we can talk about all of them, but I did want to mention him. So the cinematographer was Jack Asher, who did a lot of the Hammer stuff. Curse of Frankenstein, Dracula, Revenge of Frankenstein, Hound of the Baskervilles, and up through Mummy, Brides of Dracula. So, and he's the one, I don't know about you guys, if you thought this was sort of strange or not, but when they first get into the tomb of Ananka and everything is bathed in green light, did that light go like, where's this green coming from? I mean, but apparently that was one of his signatures, very vivid colors.
Yeah.
Lots of greens and purples and things like that. What did you think was the origin of the green light in that tomb? Whitney? Did that strike you as weird, or did you?
Oh gosh. Well, the only thing I could really take from it is when you're trying to portray it, I mean, mostly in filmmaking, and if someone creates that atmosphere, something lurid or coloration is supposed to be harsh in certain ways because it's supposed to give it more of a feeling, and colors, like bright colors, they're supposed to make things more uneasy. And so seeing something green or yellow makes things seem more intense. And that's what I get in coloration in terms of looking at things from an artist's perspective. But from the audience, I feel like looking at it as an audience member, I'm seeing there's something here, something airy, something more to the atmosphere, maybe something a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Supernatural.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it was the mummy from the poster, who is actually an alien mummy beaming a green light.
That's kind of what it looks like.
And they cut it, unfortunately, but they left it on the poster.
That's an old trick too, and if it's done right with the colors, you don't notice it, but it manipulates you into, like Whitney said, it sets an atmosphere, it sets a tone. And this is something that was done in comic books a lot to get past censors. They would, so I don't know if they would, instead of, there's a time when you could not show blood in comics. An example being X-Men. Everybody knows Wolverine with his claws. You can't just show Wolverine going in and slicing people up and stabbing without there being blood flying everywhere. So the way they got around it is they colored all the artwork just solid, everything solid red. Whenever one of these killings, Wolverine would kill somebody and it would happen. And that's how they would get around the censor then. So it kind of serves two purposes, I guess, maybe back, that really, it's, first of all, it sets that tone of, something bad's going to happen because everything goes red. But as you're reading it, you don't literally see the red. You sort of interpret there's violence, because without actually knowing it, without actually thinking about it. So that's a pretty cool trick to use, and to see them using that in movies and stuff was pretty cool too.
Yeah, I like Whitney's comment too. It gives you that there's an air of supernatural or mystical.
Yeah, very much so.
So we also had Alfred Cox, who, strangely enough, when I dug into him a little bit, he's listed as a film editor, and he did a bunch of Hammer films, starting with The Revenge of Frankenstein. But he also did sound editor for them, did 1 Million Years BC, and The Revenge of Frankenstein. So he was sound editor and film editing on Revenge of Frankenstein, I think, but also on Quatermass 2 and X the Unknown, Jason the Argonauts, First Men in the Moon. So an interesting career, I thought, but adds that, I think, continuity to some of these Hammer films. And the one that's maybe the most, gets the most credit for setting up the Hammer look is Bernard Robinson for production design. And I didn't cross-check it, but I swear he did like almost every Hammer film from The Curse of Frankenstein in 1957 until Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed in 1969. So what is it that makes those Hammer sets look so, they're almost signature?
I don't know what it is that makes them look that way. It's just that they have that beautiful, just a gorgeous look to them. I guess it's the attention to detail, and we didn't have, well, I guess we kind of did with the swamp, the kind of a bit of fog shrouded, or at least it had that kind of feeling of it, and we get that in so many of Hammer films. And here, when I think of Hammer and the sets, I often think of, Victorian era England or something like that, where so many of the films are set.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, not all, but so many. But here, at first we're, in Egypt, modern Egypt, and then as Whitney mentioned when you were talking about green lighting, we've got this beautiful interior of ancient Egypt, but it still all screams Hammer set design. And so I don't have a magical answer as to what exactly does it, but you certainly know when you see it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't mistake it for another studio.
Yeah.
Go
It's not just what, but it's a matter of who, because Bernard Robin has done a number of Hammer production design. The Devil Rides Out. You could see how bright and beautiful that set was, and how intricate some of the interiors were, and just how raw the colors were in some of those interiors, and the floors, and some of the furniture even, and you see it in the home of Peter Cushing in this film especially. Like, I love where he's in this beautiful like living space, and you see those nice curtains, everything is so pristine, and he's just standing there with that gun like he's ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For me, it was always the attention to detail, and the craftsmanship that went into those sets was just for the money that they were spending or on budget on these movies was just incredible, and plus their ability to reuse sets on different movies, maybe is what held the connection of that look, that aesthetic for a Hammer film. But to me, it was always, you could freeze frame any frame of the movie, especially if they're in a house or and the books that are on the shelf. Everything was just an incredible amount of detail, and it's just something that you did not see in other movies of that time, I don't think.
Right.
A lot of the monster films and sci-fi films of that time just look like sitcom sets, more or less on the cheaper end of things. But a Hammer film always had that look where you could tell there was a lot of love put into the sets and the detail, like the guy said. So that's what it is for me. And everybody always says, "Oh, it has the look of a Hammer film." Well, I think a lot of people tried to copy that style and that look, but and some very closely did. But a Hammer film just looks like a Hammer film. And I guess you have to love Hammer films to know that, or to get that.
Yeah, I think I agree with the idea that it's very detailed and very rich. The colors are always very rich. I was noticing little things like if there was a red cushion, it was like Hammer blood red.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't some drab color and very ornate woodwork and doors and things like that. It's never just a door, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that just really adds to that atmosphere. He's a key part of what made it that, I think. So one of the things I was wondering and thinking about the way this movie was laid out and that I saw in a review is that it's kind of they described it as a predecessor or precursor of slasher films. So nobody's getting slashed, but you have there's a very specific group of people that are being picked off one by one.
Mm-hmm.
And they're investigating and trying to figure out who or where the killer is, etc. So is that something that ever struck you, or what do you think of that idea?
I'd heard of that in the past too, and I think the only difference is that the mummy here is being controlled to kill these people. But if you take that aspect out, he is a relentless force who, with a single-minded task, and that is to kill that certain group of people that you were talking about, Jeff. So I think a parallel can be drawn, but once again, he's not doing it on his own. And a lot of the slasher films, there's no reason for the killing. Well, there may be some campfire story from the past or something. But
you could say certain slashers. Yeah.
Pardon? Yeah.
You could say certain slasher films.
Right.
If we look at, for example, Michael Myers and the Halloween series, certainly we have this silent killer who you can temporarily slow him down, but you can't stop him from, trying to carry out his killing. So that might be a parallel there.
Mm-hmm. Well, even a lot of the major ones, like even Friday the 13th, once Jason became supernatural or whatever, he just became this thing you couldn't kill, and he had one purpose, and that was just to kill everyone. You never knew why. I mean, there's theories of maybe his mother from beyond the grave was controlling him or something like that, something supernatural like that. So those you can kind of relate to the Mummy, and so I don't know, but there's others too that sort of pick people off, like 10 Little Indians and those type movies where people are just being picked off one by one. And so there's a lot of movies based on that that plot or that theme. But I can see how people would correlate this to some of the more modern slashers. Yeah.
I don't know, Whitney, did that strike you as any similarity or not?
Well, Joseph and Chad pretty much summed it up. I mean, I feel like there is an influence there for the silent killer. And to me, I feel like that could be a little bit more creepy than to have something with or someone with dialogue. So I don't
Yeah.
really have much more to add to that.
Well, I'm thinking too. It's kind of it's sort of a. Joseph has a good point. It's like a revenge killer too, only being directed, outer directed, kind of. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. But the cool thing about the Mummy movies are they're all about curses, and you know, you desecrate the grave, you get, you know, you die, and that, so you sort of know the reason behind it, and behind the why he's killing people and that kind of thing, which I've always just loved that idea of curses and someone being cursed, and there's really not really a lot you can do about it, and that's kind of horrifying to me. Bill Mulligan's not around, is he? So he won't hold that against me. But just that whole, that's what makes Karloff's so creepy, and you know, he really, even the first person that he encountered when he came back to life in Karloff's version, he didn't kill him, but the guy was just so horrified he went mad, you know. And that kind of thing is, it gives me chills, you know, those kind of curse movies and stories.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think we've pretty much covered everything. Does any final comments, Chad, since you picked this one?
Well, like I said, it's after Karloff's, it's my favorite Mummy movie, and it's a Hammer film. You've got Christopher Lee, who's almost unrecognizable as the Mummy, and the Mummy actually looks like a monster. You know, he's disfigured, he's rotted, he looks more like a zombie than a preserved human being wrapped up in bandages. Which when he came out of that bog and he was covered with mud and he sort of stayed that way throughout the film, it just gave him a look that just screamed monster, you know. And so I love it, and I love the story. If you haven't seen it and you're expecting some like one of the older Universal sequels, The Mummy's Hand, and those kind of films, it's not like that at all. It's, even though the story, it borrowed heavily from some of those plot lines of the Universal sequels, it sort of stands above those as far as production and acting, and it's elevated a little bit because of Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, and all those great actors. So shouldn't watch it thinking that it's just one of those type of slow moving, sloggy monsters that you can just run away from, because it's a little bit more than that. So if you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend watching.
So Whitney, what are any final thoughts about this in terms of recommendation?
Well, yeah, I say it's fun and it's beautiful. There's so much going on, and one thing that I would like to add to it is that it's just a family affair in a way, because it's Peter Cushing and his character solely concerned about the situation that has played out with his father, and then his uncle was written in the story to help tell the story. And I like when things are tied in with storytellings, with things that correlate to family situations, whether if it's horror or drama or whatever. And I felt like that was really nice to see something in this film, especially seeing three men tied to some family. And I like seeing that in this atmosphere, and with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee and utter all these raps, and then that sequence of where he's rising up out of that fog as he's summoned. It's all really beautiful to watch, and seeing how the story plays out with something different as a mummy.
Yeah, Joseph.
Just to add to that, it's a really cool mummy film, one of my favorites, along with Chad's, and it's a very fun and cool Hammer film. They didn't have too many misfires, at least at this point. I think they were really cranking out great films. So if you haven't, and plus you get Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing together, so I can't think of any reasons not to recommend it. It's really a fun mummy film and a fun Hammer film. So highly recommended for those who haven't seen it yet, and definitely holds up on rewatches too.
Yeah, I'm with all of you. And just to add one thing, apparently, this is the only film that has Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, and Michael Ripper, all three, which is surprising to me. I didn't double check that, but that's I read that. So yeah, that's a definite one to check out. So if you haven't seen it in a while, go watch Hammer Films The Mummy. That's it for this episode. But of course, every 2 weeks, we'll be focusing on a specific film released between 1920 and 1969. Next up, chosen by Whitney. What was it you were picking, Whitney?
No, I'm not going to say it.
Tales of Terror.
Tales of Terror from 1962. I don't know if you call that an AIP film or not. It's distributed by AIP, but directed by Roger Corman, written by Richard Matheson on Edgar Allan Poe stories with Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, Basil Rathbone, the triumvirate of male folks from that era. The only one we're missing is Boris Karloff, but along with Deborah Paget, Joyce Jameson, and Maggie Pierce. So I'm looking forward to that one. I haven't seen that for a while, but I think that might be one of the better ones that are, adaptations of the short stories.
I've never seen this one, so that'll be cool.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah. Well, be sure to tune in.
Easy for you to say.
Almost. Plenty of ways to stay in touch. Please send feedback to feedback@gruesomemagazine.com, or you can leave comments on the Gruesome Magazine YouTube channel right below this. We're also available on audio podcasts. So, and we have a great Facebook group, Gruesome Magazine's H&R and DOH podcast Facebook group. Catch us again here in 2 weeks for another great horror movie of the classic era, as only decades of horror can do it. Say good night.
Good night.
When in Egypt, be sure to visit Mammoth Bay.
Good night.